talked about this many times, in that I think the Republicans could win over a lot of minority votes if they dropped a lot of the racism, because a lot of minority groups are pretty damn conservative when you get down to it. Like, they have a lot of conservative leanings. And so do you think that's even possible for them to exist that way?
If I'm being honest, I know a whole lot of, and I'm just speaking because I know way more about the Black community than anything else. I know a whole lot of Black people who would probably, or actually not probably, who would 100% be Republican if there wasn't the issue of race. If it wasn't a racism thing, a whole lot of them were, because they all share, in most cases, they share the same values, you know, like the Christian nationalist values. They share the whole, like, conservative values. Marriage should only be with a man and a woman, and all of that. I see a lot of people have that sort of, especially when they are getting older too. That's another thing. And I'm thankful, at the very least, that younger people are starting to vote now, because we're starting to see more of, like, what people want to see, as opposed to what people have been getting before. So I don't know, honestly. I feel like it could be possible. I feel like there's a possibility that there's some that are just not as bad as the other ones and are embarrassed of the other ones, but I feel like they're a little bit more hidden. And they don't really, you don't really hear from them, because here's the thing: if there was people that were out there that were constantly, like, calling out the issues in, like, the Republican Party, or, like, just conservative values in general, and they were a part of it, I feel like more issues would actually be solved, because them themselves are the ones that are calling it out and being like, I'm a part of this and I see an issue. But that's just me.
Yeah, John and I have gone with it many times, because John is of the opinion that they can't really let go of the racism. It's too core to the actual movement. And I think he might be right. Well, he might be right. He might be right. Like, he might be completely right on that, because I said the same thing you did, that I can speak to the Black community more than, you know, other minority groups. But talk to a 60-year-old Black guy about trans issues and see how far that goes. Like, on that, like, it is like, it's not going to go very well. And one thing you did mention, Serafino, is the misogyny. Holy shit. Like, it's so bad. Like, it's so
terrible. You don't really realize how bad it is until you see it firsthand, until you're a part of it, or until you actually, like, experience it yourself. There was a lot of misogyny that was happening in my family, and specifically the main person who was doing it was my mother. And so it was kind of like I'm a woman, but my mom was kind of like a pick-me. And so I saw that happening a lot. And that happens a lot in my family, other people's family. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. And so misogyny runs rampant, and it's really, really bad.
If you permit, Serafino, I'll put you on the spot here, but I think you did a video a while ago talking about, I'm pretty sure it was you, talking about how, like, Black girls are sexualized at, like, 12 years old immediately. Like, if you want to touch on that for a second, because I thought that was a really great point.
It's really interesting, because I don't really see it all that much in other communities. Then again, I'm not really looking for it, but I've seen it happen a lot in Black communities. Little Black girls, in most cases, are really, really sexualized at really young ages. And I don't really know where it comes from. I don't know if it's, like, the idea that, I don't know if it comes from, like, the idea that Black women are, like, automatically stronger and super, super, like, independent and all of this stuff, and that makes, you know, a little child be looked at as, like, a grown adult or something. I don't know where it comes from, but it started happening to me, like, when I want to say I was around 9 or 10, whenever it started happening to me. And it's really, you have to experience it to fully be able to, like, understand, like, how messed up it actually is. Because it's like, this is a child, and you're, like, calling her fast and all of this stuff, and saying that she's, like, vying for older men's attention and not looking at the older men and being like, hey, maybe don't look at that child in a sexual manner. But there's never that conversation happening in the Black community. It's always, that little girl is fast and she needs to get somewhere and sit down. She's trying to be too grown and all of that. And it's like, no, every single person around her is sexualizing her, and she's a little child. And so many Black girls that I know have experienced that. And so that's another big issue.
Yeah. John, I'd like you to weigh in on this issue. What do you think?
Well,
what are your opinions?
I'm going to stay away from that specific issue with a 20-foot pole. But I will say, like, I think that what you guys are getting at is kind of, you know, emblematic of the problem, is that there's misogyny you know, in the black community, white, like there's misogyny reeks in different forms, in different cultures, in different groups. And the problem with conservatism, like what you're saying, like, oh, I can see how the black community can relate to the racist white community because of XYZ. But the problem is that the reason this sticks is because of in-group, out-group bias. And the reason you see it repeated again and again in every culture that there is because of that, because it's a base human desire. And people who give into in-group and out-group bias and have that power their worldview, well, they tend to be conservatives. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of that on the left too, but overall that tends to be a much larger part of the conservative ethos. And so the problem you run into is, okay, we can like get along and chat about how much we hate women, right? But like 50% of people are women, so that's not a very good outgroup to have in the democratic system. And then you have to move to other things. And yeah, the black misogynists and the white misogynists can get along, but like eventually push is going to come to shove on some issue or another. And the bigger group of white people is going to win. And that's why the Republican Party and the conservative movement in general will never be able to actually accept minorities into their conglomeration. That's not the word. There is a word that I'm looking for. I'm completely blanking on. Into their group.
Confederation is what's a good one.
Confederation. That again isn't it, but that one might be more appropriate. But yeah, that's why it'll never actually work, because as much as these things come up in every community, in fact, they often come up more in minority communities because they face so much oppression. And when you are more oppressed, you tend to oppress others more. It'll never actually benefit the Republican Party because they're going to be beholden to the largest in-group, and that's always, or at least in our lifetimes, always going to be white people.
All right, good. That's a good one right there. I had a few things I wanted to add that I didn't want to keep in the segment, but that's what we talked about.
TJ, I love to throw you just like, here's a hot potato, John.
Hey, I was thinking about it the entire time. Whenever Seraphine was talking, I was like, "Oh,
I was
man,
too. I was like, well, gee, I hope TJ has something to say."
I forgot about everything for a second.
John, please tell us your thoughts on the sexualization of black girls in our community. John, what do you have to say about this, buddy?
it's like accusing someone of hitting their wife. It's like, so explain to us how you don't hit your wife.
John, why don't you straighten us out? Tell us exactly what we're doing wrong, or something. So a couple of things I want to mention here is this one I'm pretty sure is ubiquitous in all communities, regardless of their background. But I remember being a kid, and every now and then, like we go visit relatives or whatever. And so I have a younger brother and younger sister. And I remember, like, I don't know, I'd be like 13, and my brother was 10, my sister was 8. And I remember like my parents would say stuff like, oh, hey, my sister's name is Essence. It's like, hey, don't leave Essence alone with Uncle X over there. Like, don't do that. And I was like, oh, okay, why not? I was like, yeah, they're like, yeah, just don't do it. And years later, I was like, whoa, hold on. Like, when it finally hit me, I was like, yeah. And I was surprised to find out how common this shit is, and it's like, I mean, I think now, I mean, of course, this is like, 30 years ago. I get it. But, my parents, they did their best, but like these days, like, no, we're just not taking the kids around you anymore, but culturally, people just did like, oh yeah, that's Uncle Henry, you know how he is around little girls, especially ones related to him. It's like, whoa, what the fuck are we just we're just letting this shit happen? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I definitely, I feel like I was born at a really interesting time, because I was born in like 99, and so it was a weird stage. It was kind of like a transitional stage. So I came in where people were still upholding old values, but trying to put them away at the same time. And so I saw both sides of it. I saw the sides of, hey, that's that one uncle over there. He's just a little handsy sometimes whenever he drinks a lot. Don't take it personally. He's not being a little.
Don't take it personally.
People in the family, they won't say, and the thing is that they will blame like the child more than like anything else. Like if the child is wearing shorts or something, she'll be like, well, go put on some pants or something because your uncle is coming over, and you know how he is when he gets drunk. And it's like, I feel like I feel like we shouldn't be protecting the one who how he is. It's a child that's here. And so I saw a lot of that growing up. I was told on multiple occasions, like, hey, that one uncle is coming over, or hey, your cousin is coming over. You need to go put some pants on. You can't be walking around here in shorts. And I didn't understand it as a kid. And then when I grew up, I was like, wow, that's fucked up on a lot of levels, actually. And so it's something that you don't really fully get until you become an adult yourself, and then you start to see, and you're like, okay, he was just weird. There was no, oh, he just does this whenever he drinks, or he's just handsy or whatever. The uncle is weird, and the uncle shouldn't be allowed to come over anymore.
No.
People that I'm starting to see, families that are starting to do that, they're starting to be like, you can't come around with kids anymore because you're weird and you be touching on people, and it's freaking everybody out. But I remember, like, perfect example of this, when I first saw the movie Soul Food, which I don't know if y'all, okay, yeah. So when I first saw the movie Soul Food, and there was that one pastor who was like always kissing on folks and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's not, and they were just like, yeah, he's just touchy, he's just touchy, that's just what he does, and it's like, not around the children, like not here. We're not doing that here. But
yeah, it is weird. John, you ever run across that in your family or anything? Or
yeah, I mean that specific version of it, no. I mean, I do have an uncle who was arrested for that kind of thing, but we shocked in the family. Like we didn't see it coming, but
this is even worse.
Yeah.
They were just leaving the kids unsupervised with Uncle Jack. He's a good guy. He'll be all right.
It wasn't like they were protecting him because no one knew. But I have had things in my family with like just non-sexual abuse, like just abusive behavior, whether it be physical or emotional or whatever. I come from an Irish Catholic family, fill in the blanks, right? And the thing is that, and it's still like gets at me, is that my family, like, there's conservative members, but like my nuclear family is fairly liberal, and like there's a particular uncle right now who's divorcing a particular aunt, or who's being divorced by a particular aunt because he's an abusive asshole, and he still gets invited to shit, and it always makes the aunt feel uncomfortable. And I'm like, why are we doing this? We know he's been abusive. We know this. We've heard it. We've seen it. We've witnessed it. Why are we inviting him? And it's like, oh, because he's family. He's related. I'm like, but she is too. So like, how it doesn't make any sense to me. Like you have to make someone uncomfortable. It should be the person who's being abusive, and it's a fight I have in my family right now. And it's just like I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't know if it's a time thing. Like it confuses me. I know there's a lot of it. Just like, I don't want to create conflict, and that is the thing. It's like I can create conflict with a child, but I can't create conflict with a grown-ass adult. And so I'm just going to choose the path of least resistance. I think I want to give a lot of people the benefit of the doubt and assume that that's a lot of the time what is happening. But like, God damn, like just be responsible and think for 10 seconds about the consequences of those actions.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. So what that reminded me of, so we've all heard by now the man versus bear discourse or whatever, which sounds like a cool TV show or something, but no.
It does. When I first heard it, I thought it was like a Discovery Channel show or something.
Right? It sounds cool. It's like, can a man take on a grizzly just with his wits and his bare hands? Yeah, I'd watch that show. Yeah, let's go. And so. But I saw a post about this that was just really poignant to me, and is like, look, for any of you guys who were confused why so many women pick the bear in this scenario, it's that women aren't stupid. They know there's a possibility the bear could kill them. They get that, like they understand that part. But they also know that a man could kill them. But let's say it's the worst case scenario for the bear kills them. The death will be painful, horrible, whatever. But with the man, the worst case scenario is not the man killing you. Like it's not. Like there's 100 cases worse than that. And let's say you survive the bear attack. No one's going to call you a liar when you say that a bear attacked you. That's not going to happen. You're not going to have to see the bear at like your family reunions. You won't see the bear in your social group. people won't leave you and choose the bear over you. It's like, when you think about that list of shit that could happen, yeah, that's why women should, because exactly what John's saying right now is that I feel like a lot of people just default to even, and in their minds, they're probably thinking, well, I'm just not going to pick a side on this. Sometimes you have to pick a fucking side. I'm sorry. Welcome to the adult world, and
if there's a side is a side.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. Yeah.
There are some things where you can't just be like, oh, I'm neutral on it. Oh, I don't know. No, this is not a situation where you can be neutral, because if you're being neutral, you're picking the side of the abuser, of the person who did the wrong thing, because you're choosing not to hold them accountable for it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If there wasn't, if the status quo wasn't an uneven power dynamic, there wouldn't be abuse to begin with.
I agree. I wrote something down about outgroup and race, and I can't remember what it was, but it would have been good. Sorry, I'll see if I can.
I said that the in-group outgroup bias is one of the reasons you see it in every single community, regardless of race. But the reason conservatives and Republican parties will never reach out to minorities is because the biggest in-group is white men, and doesn't matter what other similarities there are, you'll always have that in-group outgroup bias in an in-group outgroup bias driven party. I don't know if that rings a bell.
Yeah, I think I was gonna go with what you mentioned about how black misogynist and white misogynist and misogynist of any other color can kind of agree. I think I was gonna talk about hoteps for a second, because those hoteps are they're just white supremacists who happen to be black. That when it comes down to it, they believe the same fucking shit. It's pretty amazing. And one thing I wanted to mention that you brought up, Serafina, is how girls, and black girls in particular, are sexualized at a very young age. And you said you weren't sure where that stems from, because you're black, so you're older and you have to be smart. And a lot of this. So there's a course you take when you go to medical school, where they teach doctors about racial discrimination through medicine. They have classes to teach doctors that yes, black people need the same amount of painkiller as white people. Just so you know, they don't have superpowers. It's a lot of people
to say that.
So yeah, it is, and it just goes. So if you look in the past, in the 1800s, whatever, doctors would perform surgeries on black people. And it's oh yeah, well, they just don't feel, they're like fish, they don't feel pain the same way that white people do. So they don't need as much anesthetic, or they don't need any at all. And we'll just do tests and everything on. And this is bled throughout society and everything. And it's seen both ways with men and women, with boys and girls for the black community, is that Tamir Rice is 12 and the cops shoot him in 5 seconds. We got a full grown man here. We got to take him out. And so I can easily see how that transfers to black girls as well. It's oh yeah, I mean, this is these people are like animals, after a couple of years, they're ready to mate and shit like that. And so I can definitely see how that happens. So, I mean, I don't know if you agree on that as well, Serafina, but that was the first thing I thought of.
Oh, no, you're completely right, honestly. And I feel like on top of all of that, it's also because people believe that black girls develop faster. And so as far, and in some cases they do. I developed really very, very early. I got my first bra before I was 10, and so I was.
Wow, that's really early. Wow,
it was. I developed at a really, really young age, and so I feel like that was a part of the reason why I was looked at as fast or whatever. Which fast is kind of, it's I don't even know if this is just a black thing or whatever, but it's basically
This is my first time hearing it, Serafina, so I can confirm it's probably a black thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it from context clues what it meant.
I never like to assume. Because I know sometimes I'm in my bubble of being oh, this is a black thing, and then sometimes it's not. But it's, in most cases, it's seen as a little girl who's not like a hoe, but she has the tendency to. She acts like she's very sexual or whatever. And it's that's not a little girl. I don't care what you say. That's not a little girl. So,
yeah, that is a thing. It's funny because when you say fast, I immediately think of someone in middle school or high school. I don't think of a 24-year-old as fast. I only think of it because fast just reminds a flirtatious cock tease, basically. I'm leading you on and shit. That's what it is. And it's so fucking weird that it applies to girls, and that's just what they use it for. Oh, that girl, and not just for like for teenage boys but for full grown men. It's like, yeah, watch out for her. You're like, well, no, they watch out for you.
Yeah. Just don't. What do you mean watch out for her? What's she gonna do? She gonna tie you up? Like, what's she gonna do?
And I feel like that also is where the whole like, oh, well, this is a black girl, and so she's older than a white girl that would be her age or whatever. She's more mature or whatever, and so it's looked at as her fault. Like she's the one that's doing something wrong because grown men are attracted to her.
All right, guys, you've made it to the end of the episode, and it was probably maybe not the most well-buttoned episode, so this is me buttoning it. It's over. We had a very fun time talking today with our guests and went on a lot of different tangents. One of them you might have just listened to in this video. So if you want to hear more from our guests, Serafina, where can people find you?
Yes, so you can find me on TikTok at The Devil's Daughter 162, on Instagram at that same handle, and on YouTube at that same handle.
Thank you very much, Serafina. It was a great time, folks. We had a blast. We appreciate you joining us. Come back next time. All right, good stuff. Serafina, you haven't been around, but that is the tamest outro I've ever done. Usually I try to sneak a joke in there, but I know. I just like today I was like we kind of like hit the gas up pretty hard today. So
thank you, all right, to everyone who's been watching live. We're gonna wrap now. To Mark and Lena. And Lena, I hope you loved that, Lena. I really did.
We tried our best. We tried. Good stuff. Oh.